Dr. Irietti, Mrs. Stiff, Mr. Townsend,
Yes.
Mr. Farley, you,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Tackett, and Dr. Corbett.
Yes.
Good evening and welcome to the Prince Edward County School Board meeting. Let's stand and take pledge of allegiance. Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
We are now to number 7, Dr. Johnson. Awards, recognitions, commendations.
Virginia School Board Association established a business honor roll to allow local school divisions to submit local businesses who support public schools with their support and generosity. These businesses have the power to shape community attitudes about public schools, and the Virginia School Board Association Business Honor Roll is a way for local school divisions like ours to recognize these businesses for their support. PECPS would like to say thank you to the following local businesses. First, we have the Prince Edward County Commonwealth Attorney's Office and the Commonwealth Attorney, the Honorable Megan Clark. Would you come forward, yes, please? In appreciation, we'd like to share this award with you for all that you have done for us and for our children, particularly around the School of Law. Thank you. I believe someone's taking a picture.
Can you hold?
Thank you. Thank you. We also have Natalie Farmer, who will be accepting the award on behalf of Centra and allowing our students to work and do their internships there. We thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much. And we have from the Farmville Firemen's Auxiliary. I'm sorry.
You're right. It's Farmville Fire Department.
That big word. Why don't you come up? Because I thought that's what we said, but this is the way it goes. Mr. Price.
No.
What'd you say?
Richard, you're right.
Huron. Mr. Huron is accepting on behalf of.
Farmville Fire Department Auxiliary.
Exactly. So we will have this corrected. We will have this. Oh, that's right. It is right. Okay. And that is because you all allowed us to.
AEDs to.
Yes, to the
Like
schools.
two separate times.
Yes.
Last time was done, but.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Public participation.
One person.
Yes, we do have one person who signed up for public participation. Before I call that person's name, I need to read the guidelines for public participation. The purpose of the public comment portion of the meeting is to direct comments to the board and/or provide information. The board listens to each comment and does not engage in dialogue with the speaker. The Comments should be respectful and demonstrate consideration for others by not referring to any specific person or personal incident. When the speaker's allotted time expires, the board chair will give a signal and the speaker should conclude his or her comments. Each participant has up to 5 minutes to speak. The superintendent will provide the speaker with a follow-up response on behalf of the board. Thank you in advance for following this procedure. Your cooperation ensures individuals can share their comments while also allowing for the timely completion of the board's agenda. We have Hope Ray Good. All right, why don't you come forward? Would you please say your name again and your address?
Just to let everybody know, my name is Pamela Hope Ray Gould. I'm hearing impaired and deaf in the other ear, so I live with. So I have issue with the transportation problem down the street. I received a letter from the middle school for my daughter about they want me to meet 3849 Five Forks Road. And I never had a problem the past 2 summer school. I wanted them to meet me at Millbanks and Five Forks. Okay, they want me to meet at 3849 Five Forks Road. I do not know the person that lives there, and the neighbor or the road across the street said private property. I do not know them, and plus for safety reason. Where I live, the auto mechanic is my neighbor down at Little Creek Lane. So all it is 0.8 miles from his house to the intersection of Millbank. All I want is them to come down there at Millbank and Five Forks to pick up my daughter and drop her off for summer school. Never had a problem in the past. Even her current bus driver. I compromised with them to meet at Millbank with her current bus driver. So all I ask is for them to drive down to Millbank Road, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when would I know the result? Because I plan on taking her to school tomorrow and go to the transportation department and find out if they're gonna drop her off at Millbank.
We will address this tomorrow, so you'll get a phone call tomorrow.
I would get a phone call because I called and left a voicemail to somebody and never called me back yesterday. I looked at the phone numbers on the board calendar. I even emailed somebody, but it came back to me as Mail Damien or something. So I don't know.
We will call you tomorrow. So bring your child to school tomorrow,
Okay.
but we will call you tomorrow.
Because she really needs help, you know, because she's has short-term and long-term disability. So I really want her to get the extra help.
Thank you.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can go now?
Yes,
Thank you very much.
That was the only person who signed up. We're gonna move on with the meeting to number 9, the consent agenda.
I have, well, I have a comment,
Comment,
and I
okay?
want to do it before Ms. Hargrave leaves. I want to shout out to the middle school. I was looking at the attendance, and I'm just looking like at between May of 2023 and May of 2024. The significant increase in attendance at the middle school is to be applauded, and it's really across the board. And so I don't know what y'all are doing at the middle school, but I mean, y'all had 95% attendance at the middle school in the month of May this year. That's to be commended.
Yeah, piggyback, I'll say the same thing. It's over attendance for many years, and 95% the
It's
last
huge.
month of school
It's
is
huge.
awesome.
So I'm glad you got
That's
to
all.
say that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, again, did you get a motion for that?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second, okay, All in favor? Thank you. Action items? Appropriations.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Carson, School Board Chair, School Board members, and Dr. Johnson. This evening, I stand before you coming to ask for appropriations for local and cafeteria funding. Local is for the Piedmont Regional Detention Center. They have additional monies for $4,500 for next school year. Not this school year, next school year. It has to be expensed by September 30th of next school year, so we need to get it into their budget on July 1. And that will give our total operating budget of $31,762,612 for the FY 24-25 school year. And then, do you have any questions about the local one first?
Any questions, board members? Yeah. Go ahead.
And then for the cafeteria funding, they have to actually have additional funding in their account. They cannot go with over an access in their funds. So this year, they had access funds, so they had to spend those funds. So with that, they spent it out of their regular budget. Now we're asking for money out of their reserve funds. And that's in the amount of $197,800. That will take them out for the end of the school year. And there's no local match to that either.
End of the school year to June 30th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Ms. Chalmers?
I have a question, but I don't know what the question is. Will you explain again what that fund, what the transaction is?
Okay, cafeteria last school year ended with an excess of over revenue that they can carry in their account based on DOE guidelines. So they had to expense that money. They have to do a chart on how they're gonna spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
And since it came out of their regular money that we had already appropriated to the division, we had to go back to them and actually, the cafeteria account, and ask for additional funds, which they have it in their account. We're just asking to be appropriated on their books, on our books.
I understand
I kind of do, but it's kind of swapping money.
It's not swapping money, it's actually putting back what you have actually used out of their regular,
Reimbursing.
yes, more so,
Okay.
more so, yes ma'am.
Any other questions?
I move we approve these additional
Was there another one?
appropriations.
Did you have another one?
It's just those-
It was two, we did the first one already.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought there were three.
All right, there's a motion on the floor, all in favor? Okay. Thank you.
You ready for, good evening again. Mr. Good and I, Mr. Good and I stand before you asking for, to approve our 24-25 fuel bid offer. We actually had our fuel bidding opening today, and, Mr. Good, you wanna take it from there?
Sure. We received bids from James River Solutions, Southern States, and Fossil Fuels. The states are going to get our gas, diesel, heating oil, and Fossil Fuels is going to get our propane. James River Energy, they didn't receive any agreement from us. All their prices were higher than everyone else. So basically, we have the same people this year that we had last year, and all the prices are pretty much the same. Only increase was for middle school. We have 2,000-gallon tanks, so those are a little bit higher because it calls for a smaller truck. So they went about like .075. Everything else was either the same or a little bit cheaper. So if you go down the sheets, you'll see gas at sheets for $3.29. Because we're in the consortium, we pay $2.36 for gasoline. So it's a benefit for us being in there. And that price is good for the entire year.
Starts July 1, ends June 30th.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments?
Can school board members get the same discount?
Only if y'all have a consortium and y'all agree to use like 80,000 gallons of fuel during the year, then y'all might can get in on that price.
Is there any way
Would've
that
been a
if
good
gas
perk.
prices drop drastically, that we'll get a cheaper price?
No, sir, this is fixed. The only way you get a cheaper if you do variable, and then variable, then you might pay $2.36 today, and then tomorrow you might pay $3.85 the next year. So this way, the budget, it's a little bit better for the budget, you know how much you have to pay.
Repeat, well, how much was it again? I'm sorry, I was.
For gasoline?
Yes.
For gasoline, you'll pay $2.359 for gasoline, $2.499 for diesel fuel. I think diesel fuel still is a little about $3.89, close to $4. For heating fuel, it's $2.53. For the smaller tanks, it's $2.65 for that, and propane is $1.25.
I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the fuel consortium recommendations.
Second. All in favor?
Thank y'all for your
Thank
support.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Johnson, and members of the school board. I am here tonight to ask for your blessing to submit our grant applications for the 24-25 school year.
This is same as what we went over last time.
This is the Title I.
Yes, all the title.
No changes?
No, ma'am.
I move we approve the title applications.
Second.
All in favor? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Johnson. I present to the board the recycling list for the summer. I ask the board to approve this year's recycling surplus of all broken, deprecated equipment. Thank you.
Any questions?
I just had one, thinking back some years ago, like with the technology and say desktops or laptops, if any of those would still be usable to work in our schools, say perfect attendance, like our students with perfect attendance, that those could be used as an incentive, be given as an award at the end of the year. Could that be maybe something in the future, like say next year?
Well, the teachers have the laptops and they use them until they're pretty much, they need another one. The Chromebooks, we let the students, I think it was started last year, the year before, the students will get Chromebooks from the 9th grade on, and then once they graduate, they can keep their Chromebooks. So, and a lot of the Chromebooks that come back, we put into Chromebook cards for different programs and different needs and stuff like that until they're no longer usable.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we need a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recycling list.
Second. Okay, second. All right, all in favor? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school board, and Dr. Johnson. I'm here today to present to you all our division literacy plan for approval. This is a plan that we've been working on diligently this year, and I want to kind of explain to you the process that we have worked on this plan. Make sure I use this correctly. Yes. All right, so these are the key components of the VLA. So this is the Virginia Literacy Act. And so this is stating, and you all have seen some of this language before, so this is not new to you. So this just re-explains what the Virginia Literacy Act is telling us we need to do. But part of that, the last bullet says that every division will develop a literacy plan that's going to ensure the use of evidence-based literacy curriculum, staffing enough reading specialists to support the intervention needs, and then provide the professional development to our teachers, reading specialists, and principals. So that is what this plan will address. The components of the literacy plan, it's a template that the state developed for all the schools to use, and it's broken up into 6 sections, and this lays out what those sections are for you to see. And so then we addressed each of the sections within the plan. The division literacy team was made up of elementary school principal, middle school principal, high school principal, assistant principal from the elementary school, and then we had all the reading coaches that we have in the division. So we had elementary, middle, and high school reading coaches, teachers from the middle and high school, and then we had the director of special education, curriculum and instruction, and instructional mentors. We included middle and high school on this team as well. The plan for the state right now, the requirement is K3, but we are doing a plan that is going to encompass our division. But K5, I'm sorry, we're turning in a K5 plan, but we're doing a plan that's encompassing the division. But this plan that's in front of you to read is K5. This is actually our process. So we started the process in February, and what you will see is the Virginia Department of Education has kind of walked through schools through this process. So what they have done is they have set up training series in different sections for each part of the plan, and then after that we would meet with our team. So you will see where we developed our team, and then the VDOE had their first implementation series training, where our team went to that training, put on by the VDOE, and then we came back and shared that information with the rest of the school level team. And then we did that again in March, April, and May. We had a few more meetings because at that point we really needed to talk about some more of the information to make sure that we had this plan in place. So that's the process, and then our next steps right now is for you to review this plan. And then during back to school week, we will present this to all of the teachers. Summer training is happening now. The VDOE has pushed out training for principals on June 24th at Longwood University. And then they have Canvas models. The VDOE is going to continue training sections of teachers throughout the year, and they're doing it through Canvas modules. So those are being put out on a series through VDOE, and our teachers will attend those trainings, and then we will have follow-up sessions for them just to make sure that we're able to provide support.
I'd also like to add that the plan that you see before you is actually the template from the Virginia Department of Education. So for us, we will actually take this and turn it into a document for our school-based personnel as a part of our plans. But this specifically is the template from VDOE.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
The components of the literacy plan. Would you give me an idea, maybe the board, someone else might want the information too, of what's included, let's say, in section 1, planning for comprehensive communication? What kind of things are they expecting to see in and for that particular one?
So I can give you a quick breakdown of each section. So the first one talks about the school's vision, and then how that vision will be communicated to stakeholders. So that pretty much explains section 1, and it actually lists how we're going to communicate it to teachers, how will we communicate it to the school board, how will we communicate it to the public. So the first part really just talks about the vision and how that is shared with people. The second part talks about selecting our high quality instructional materials. And that, for us, we talked about this a few meetings ago, that we already are using the adopted programs from the state. So that really for us was already completed. But we did have to select some of the intervention materials and some of the supplemental materials that was just approved by the state and the VDOE in April. So that just explains those materials that we adopted. Then we talk about the training. How will our teachers be trained? How will our principals be trained? How will our reading specialists be trained? So we put our training in there, but then we also list all of the VDOE training. So you will see in this document all of the training that they have laid out for the staff, because they actually will break it up specific to secondary, elementary, and some of it's even content-specific teachers. And then the next one will list, let me get to that next section, I think is monitoring. So that just talks about how are we going to assess students' learning. So the screener, the state actually will tell us the screeners that we're going to use for most of our students, and then any additional screeners or progress monitoring documents that we choose to use. That's in section 4. Section 5 talks about how do we assess the progress of this plan. So what do we have in place to monitor the plan? And then section 6 talks about, where's the plan located, where parents can see this, and how will community members be aware of the plan. So that's just breaking down the components in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ms. Garrett, how different is this? I mean, I'm guessing that those divisions who've been doing guided reading and level books and Fountain and Pinellas, this is a much bigger jump for them. Have we already, is this going to be a big jump for us this year, or have we already been moving toward this evidence-based learning reading program?
So we have started the move to science of reading.
Yes, so I watched the movie, and
Yes.
I'm kind of a convert now.
We've changed, so the balanced literacy
Yes,
is what you're
balanced
talking about,
literacy,
which
yes.
was,
Oh, the big.
10 years ago till that was the way we
Right.
instructed in reading classes. We have started that process. That's not new, especially at the elementary school, which is
Okay.
why the program that they adopted 3 years ago follows the science of reading.
Okay.
So for the elementary school teachers also have been letters trained, which walks them completely through the science of reading training. So for us, this is not brand new. I would say maybe 3 or 4 years ago,
It was
a new shift, but we're already on the boat. We're
Okay.
moving.
Okay.
So I would say it's not gonna be brand new for elementary school.
Okay.
For middle school, it's a little different, and we're
Correct.
also, as I said at a previous meeting, we're also making sure our high school is a part of this. So for those two groups, it will be a bigger change, but not for our elementary.
So, Doc, I'm sorry.
Dr. Corbett had a question. Then you-
How does the Commonwealth, the Virginia DOE, how do they in turn look at this, and how do they evaluate us with that? We're monitoring it.
Well, because we have an MOU,
Okay.
we talk about this, I talk about this weekly, monthly, quarterly, just depends. Like, for instance, we just had a meeting with Dr. Coombs. Miss Carson was a part of that meeting, and we talked about the students that are using the interventions, Zern and Lexia. And we talked about how many students used it, how many students passed the SOL. I can't say as a result of that learning, but how many students passed the SOL, how many failed, et cetera. So for us, we have a very direct connection to the state to discuss this.
Now, do they give us, in turn, do we get direct feedback from them about our progress and how we're doing with it? Do they?
Through our meetings, yes.
Okay.
I cannot speak for what it will look like for the entire state or those divisions without MOUs.
Okay, but we do
But
get
for us,
some feedback.
yes. In fact, we got very positive feedback from the state superintendent about the data that we have started collecting on our own around the interventionists and the interventions.
And I will add that when this division literacy plan is turned in, all of this, Virginia is turning it in June, they are planning on giving us feedback specific to this plan for revisions in the fall. So we will get direct feedback about this plan and are we moving in the direction that the state wants us to? So that will be helpful.
I was about to ask Dr. Johnson about the strategic plan and how this literacy plan is incorporated into our strategic plan.
If you remember previous discussions, we do have a draft of a strategic plan. We put everything on hold and we put discussions with the board on hold until we had this plan because it needs to be incorporated into the strategic plan. There is, as Ms. Kimbrough will mention earlier, it's this month, maybe it's next month, there's an actual policy around the literacy plan.
Yes.
And so we, several around the literacy plan. So we had to put things on hold for a little while around discussions about the strategic plan because we need to make sure our literacy plan, there's also a division improvement plan that's part of our MOU that is being updated. All of that needs to be a part of our strategic planning. So we are rethinking also with some comments or suggestions from different board members. We're rethinking how we are approaching getting the final document, but we are constructing the documents as independent pieces, and we have to roll them into one.
First, I just want to say I appreciate the attention to all three levels, I mean, especially in a county like this one where we have double-digit percentage adult literacy, partial literacy rates. I think that's a very important thing, and I think it'll set the tone for the rest of the state, and not that far in the future. So that was my only comment. And then just motion to approve the division literacy plan as presented.
Second.
Reorganized. Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Ciao.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed the motion.
Oh.
Okay. The SBA, February updated policies.
We finally get to vote on some. And so I hope that you have a chance to take a look at these, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. For the most part, the changes were either adding cross-references or new legal references, sometimes a word change, here and there to make it legal, but there weren't any real substantive changes in these. But if you looked at them and have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Yes.
There were a couple that were actually just deleted altogether, but
Yes.
like the homework and the.
Yes. VSBA says those are not legally required, and I guess since we have 325, 324 is okay.
Should delete a couple, but.
Yeah,
The facilities one, too, that was one as well, and the homework, and when I read it seemed to make that much sense.
there is one in here about renaming school buildings, and I don't remember exactly which one it is.
FFA.
FFA. We did not, we kept the language of our current policy as it is. So this one does not specifically go along exactly the way VSBA says, because we felt it was important. We liked the way we the policy for renaming or naming facilities is set up now, where we can make it a committee to help us with the name. So I did want to point that out, that we kept our language the same way as it was when it was adopted in 2015.
Any other questions, comments? Need a motion to vote on these?
Make a
I
motion.
move that we vote to approve these policies that are up for second reading.
Second.
Second? All right, all in favor?
Okay, I'll meet again, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, as you can see, there's a whole lot more for you to look at over the next month. Again, I will also want to tell you that if there was any question about any of these policies when we were having the discussion as a committee, we referred them to our attorney to double check that the language was correct or what we wanted to say was correct. So they've been vetted not just by us, but also if there was any question by our attorney. So I'm would encourage you in the next month, when you don't have anything better to do with your life, come on, get back online and take a look and see if there are any that you might have questions about. Because we have 22 more to do for second read next month and 23 for the next, and I'm guessing the VSBA will hand out the August ones. So this is kind of a never-ending process, but it feels like it's a little bit more streamlined than the way we've done it in the past. So I appreciate Ms. Stiff, Mr. Townsend, and I certainly appreciate Dr. Johnson's willingness to meet once a month to go over them one by one.
I really appreciate you taking on that task. We'll go on to B.
Did we vote on the policies? I'm sorry.
We already voted on them. We're on non-renewal. I received this proposal from Dr. Ariady and Mr. Tackett about our procedures and protocols. And I wanted to share it with the board, because this is a board decision. And I sent it to the VSBA, and the person who really does it, she hadn't been in, she's been on vacation, so I was hoping to hear back from her before this meeting, but I have not. But Dr. Ariady and Mr. Tackett, either one of you want to discuss this and give us?
Yeah, I prepared about 3 minutes of words. A few days before the election last November, I made an appointment to see Dr. Johnson to talk about the schools. And she gave me a book about the system with the slogan on the cover, United in Excellence. At my first school board meeting, I received a mug in a box with the words, think positive. So this proposal, which Harvey and I are presenting, is an indication of Harvey's and my positive thinking about how to improve the schools, and I hope we will be united in excellence in our attempt to bring about this excellence. After my election, at my first meeting with Dr. Johnson, we spoke about diminishing the exodus of students and teachers from the school system and improving the morale at the schools. And we discussed some regular socials for teachers where they could discuss various issues among themselves, and some other socials with Dr. Johnson and other administrators. A resurrection of the one-time issues and concerns committee in which teachers themselves would elect their representatives who would speak directly with the superintendent every now and again, and perhaps also with the school board also came up. Dr. Johnson seemed receptive to some of these ideas and also to others. But we haven't had any discussions or implemented any of these ideas, and I haven't heard of any others, at least personally. The proposal that Harvey and I are presenting contains a resurrection of the old policy of granting school board members free access to the schools, except of course for checking in at the security desk, to talk to administrators, teachers, and students. I was chatting with a former school board member who served 2 terms from 2000 to 2008, where I had heard that he was much appreciated for going to the schools and talking with anyone who wanted to talk to him. Later, I met people at a fundraising dinner who remembered his presence in the schools and were comforted by it. They reported that the accessibility of members of the school board in those days improved their morale. I don't know when the freedom of members of the school board to spend time in the schools at their own discretion was revoked. The present proposal would restore it and is consistent with Kanan Townsend's exhortation at our last meeting to go into the schools and talk to people. When Miss Brittany Davis invited all of us to a program at the Moulton Museum last February entitled "Barbara Johns Had Something to Say and So Do We," I attended. And when the production ended and the student organizers invited the adults in the audience, calling especially members of the school board to join them in front of the stage to talk, I went to the stage, and not only that, I didn't just want to talk that Saturday afternoon, but I invited Brittany Davis to have lunch with me the following Tuesday and to bring a few classmates with her. Principal McQuage Hicks, who happened to be standing right next to us, told me with a very welcoming hospitality that when I arrived at the high school to come to her office and she would find a quiet room for Miss Davis, her companions, and me. So I need not to go into the details of how my actions disturbed Dr. Johnson and some others, or how I was strongly encouraged to make up some excuse for canceling the appointment. I kept the appointment, for I recall the appeal of John Lewis, not to quail at stirring up good trouble. So I kept the appointment, and I heard Miss Davis wish for other members of the school board to talk directly with the students too. So the change of the protocol that Harvey and I are proposing will enable all of you to follow Kanan's exhortation to go into the schools without the inhibiting, gnawing sense that Big Brother is watching us.
Okay, so where do we go from there?
We can approve the change in the protocols.
I think that I've never had trouble going into the schools, but the protocol is to let the superintendent know that you're going into the school. Because if something happens, the superintendent is ultimately the person who's going to follow, or whoever it is. But it's not that. I think it's a great idea that since the superintendent is in charge of the day-to-day operation of the building, that the superintendent should be aware of who is in and out of it. If you want to go in and visit, that's fine.
We would still have to stop at the security, and the security
Yes,
sent an
you
email
still have to do
Dr.
that.
Johnson,
Yes.
if she wants to know who's there. But it restores some spontaneity. I was very inspired by the teaching, reading initiative, and I might like to stop by and see how it's going. I also wanted to see how the children who are handicapped with respect to hearing are given attention for which we paid in $7,000 on the last financial statement, and nobody could tell me what was going on. And so I think we would all benefit. And the person that I talked to who was on the school board from 2000 to 2008 is Ellery Sedgwick, who was a Longwood professor. And I heard from many people, teachers and office workers, that they saw him all the time in the schools, and it really was good for their morale. I think it would remove a cloud of administrative absence, and it would be good for the morale of the people.
So,
Okay. Did you? Okay.
So
Mr.
your
Tate.
rationale for wanting to make the change is what is your rationale for wanting to make the change? Again, Dr. Ariady, maybe I missed it. Why do you,
Because I think it's important for people to talk in an unmediated way with us, and so that we can find out their views. This is, I was very moved by the students and their cry from their heart at the Moulton event.
then my follow-up question is, where is the evidence, the data, or whatever else we may be able to use to show us, or show me, that what we have is not working?
Well, if you had been to the Moulton Museum and seen,
I was there.
and you saw how disillusioned all the students were, and they were crying out for adults in charge to talk to them. And we need to be.
But then I hear you, Dr. Ariady.
And they
But
want
you
to be
don't
able to-
make the point that one is going to correct the other. And to, if I may go down to the other one, that's somewhere down here that says the school board, the members who go into the school may or may not decide that they are going to mention to the superintendent, I'm paraphrasing right now, I don't see it, but that they are going to, it may or may not decide to let the superintendent know what they saw or discovered. If I could hear you say that the agenda under which I'm going into the schools is to here to help Dr. Johnson or help the administration or whomever understand the need and make corrections or have a conversation, a dialogue or something of that nature, then I could kind of go along with your rationale. I don't hear that.
Well, that's exactly the rationale, and the reason that they may or may not tell everything that happened and whom we met is that I met a number of teachers who live in fear, and this way their confidentiality will be preserved. I would want to know actually how they feel.
Mr. Tackett, you had to.
Based on our current protocols, if there's an activity or anything happening at the schools, if I want to, as a board member, look to go visit, I need to contact the board office first, contact Dr. Johnson. I don't have just the liberty to go to a school activity based on what's in writing. If we're taking what's gospel here, what's in policy, what's in the protocols. Again, this is new to me, being a board member, but also my previous position, I didn't have protocols. I was in a school district where board members, they went to whatever school they wanted to visit. They didn't contact the board office. But we know we've got protocols here in our division, and that's why I supported Dr. Ariady when he contacted me that we bring this before the board. It's not trying to do a catch-all or go into the schools and try to find out something behind the scenes. It's actually to try to help support and try to open just that two-way communication with our students, with our staff, with our school community. Because in the absence of not knowing, perception becomes reality. And again, this fall, when school starts back, I like to be able to go into the schools. I like to know that I can go into the schools and not have to contact the board office every time. And not to say that I'm trying to do something behind Dr. Johnson's back, because I've always believed in being open and honest and fair and consistent with policies back in 1984, when I started in public education as a teacher, to now, that if nothing changes tonight, I mean, if the board has a consensus, don't want to go along with this, I'll follow what's in the protocols and support as a team and contact Dr. Johnson. But on the spur of the moment, like he mentioned a key word, spontaneity. Come the first or second week of August, it may be an opportunity I can go into to one of the schools, or there may be an activity or whatever, that if I have to go ahead and contact the school, the board office, and Dr. Johnson's not here, okay, well, I better not go. So is that, again, if we're going to adhere to what's in, again, I'm a rule follower, I'm a protocol follower, I'm a policy follower, because there were so many times that I would have to go back to policy and look what's there. So I would make sure and not miss something. So.
Is it my turn? Or is it Mr. Townsend?
Well, I had raised mine too, but that's fine.
Yeah,
But-
he's got a turn too.
Okay.
So,
Well, I go to the schools. At least, I try to go twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. And I've always contacted Dr. Johnson and the principals, and I'm gonna say that it's, when I get there, the principal is waiting on me, and I appreciate it. But I always leave feeling like it's kind of a sanitized visit. That I'm walking in the halls and going into a few classrooms. And, I mean, the day that Mrs. Carson and I went year before last for staff appreciation, and we saw, I think, about 98% of our staff, because we went to the, maintenance office, we went to the bus, we went everywhere. That was a really good visit, I felt like. And I'll be honest with you, I started thinking about this because I mean, I think we ought to have the ability to go into schools whenever we want to. I actually don't have to get permission from Dr. Johnson to go to the schools. I just need to let her know I'm going. She's not giving me permission to go. I just can shoot an email. I think I'm gonna stop by the elementary school today. And that's really all I have to do. But I'm also going to want to say that if I show up in the middle of the school day, and I'm walking down the halls, I know better than to walk in a classroom and try to carry on any kind of meaningful conversation with a teacher to interrupt instruction. Now, I might, and I think I might, start going to lunch. Then I email Dr. Johnson and say, I'm going to lunch today. I'm going to stay for all 3 lunches, and I'm just going to go sit among the kids and see what I find out, or see what they say to me. So I'm not sure that we can't accomplish the same thing that I totally get, because I hear from employees, many of you hear from employees that they are not happy, very unhappy, and there's a disconnect. And we do, as board members, need to try to find out why we have so many employees leaving, and why they say the culture is not positive. But I'm not sure just showing up at 9:30 in the morning at the high school without anybody knowing, and it's right in the middle of the first block, is gonna accomplish that. That's my feeling. That we can still go whenever we want to, we just need to shoot her an email and say we went. One of the other things that y'all suggested that I'm not gonna support, that's on here, is about the agenda items needing to be, not having to be submitted more than at least 14 days before the meeting. And before the 3 of y'all got on the board, this was a huge issue that we spent many, many days in talking about, and was a compromise. And now sitting on, now that I'm now privy as vice chair to the agenda meetings, which are held 7 days prior to the meeting, giving Dr. Johnson and her staff a week, if there's any data or information that has to be gathered, she and her staff need that amount of time then to get it on the agenda to discuss with Ms. Carson and I. So that one, I won't support that particular one. And the one about not having to inform the superintendent, I guess what I'd like to hear from y'all is, why can't we, and even if you're on the spur of the moment deciding to go to a baseball game, which I didn't really consider going to a baseball game as something I needed to tell the superintendent about. But if I wake up one morning and decide I'm going to lunch, even if she's not here, she's not giving, our protocol doesn't say she's giving us permission to go. Our protocol just says we tell her. And so I need y'all to help me understand why we can't get to the same goal and still just notify her that we can.
Do we,
Can.
according.
Well, wait a minute, it's not your turn. You got two people behind.
Sorry.
So Susan said a lot of what I was going to say, so I'll be brief, but I want to bring context to my comment last meeting, Dr. Ariady. It was not to say that the policy is what needed to be changed, it's the behavior that needs to be changed. And it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse here a bit, in the sense that, have you even tried to go to the schools? Is this an issue, or are you projecting an issue? That's where I'm confused, and my quote is being taken out of context here, and I don't appreciate that. But what I'm suggesting is essentially what Susan ended up saying, which is it that big of a deal? Is it that hard to just send a quick email just to say, it doesn't even say you need a reply, it doesn't say 48 hours, you just have to like inform. And if you don't think when you get to the security desk, the first thing they're gonna do is let the superintendent know you're here. So at that point, what is the point? Because either way she's gonna find out. If it's trying to be secretive, we're not. And so, again, my suggestion was a change in behavior, not policy. Because if we're not using the policy, why are we talking about it? Because it doesn't sound like we're quite using it. That's where I'm at.
Did you have?
Yes, I did. And, when you look at this, there's your introduction and everything is one thing, but then there are some other things that just doesn't seem to apply to what your concern is about in changing the protocol. Why would we need to inform? Why do we have a chair? That's who we bring our questions to. We don't have a co-chair. So the vice chair, the vice chair is just backup. So that's the way our board, we've discussed these norms, and we took days discussing norms. And for you to come and just say that, we want to change the norms in a meeting, we need to discuss this more. And there's going to be a long, drawn-out discussion before we change any of these things, unless the board is already on board to make these changes. But this is something I think that we as a board would have to discuss together, and not two people to come together as the board and bring it back. Yes, sir.
That was my comment at the beginning when I said this is a board decision, that it's all about decision. Dr. Johnson asked, and then
I just want to say on my side of this, first of all, thank you, Ms. Kimbrough, for making it clear. No one's asking me for permission, just letting me know as a courtesy so that I know who is here and who is on campus. It is also a courtesy to allow the principal to know, or assistant principals, administrators, who's in the building. We talk about safety. That is an issue. We always want to know who's in our buildings, whether it's a parent, whether it's a board member. It really doesn't matter. We want people to know that you're there. This is not intended the protocol is not intended to sanitize your visits. You can go wherever you want, whenever you want. It has been the practice, however, that these protocols have been in place for, typically, this is my experience on my side, board members tell me when they are coming to events during the day. It is during the instructional day that they usually tell me that they are coming. But baseball games, football games, all that kind of stuff, that after-school activity stuff, board members have not sent emails to me telling me they're going. Okay, you're welcome to go to any football game, any basketball game, anything you want. These protocols are for the school building and for the school day, when we are trying to maintain safety, security, and knowing who's in our buildings. That's it. So for anybody who is fearful of talking to us and want to talk to you, that's fine. You can talk to whoever you want in the schools. All I ask is that you don't interrupt instruction. That's all I ask. I think lunches is a great idea. I think that's fine. It's just a courtesy. And there was the statement of trying to dissuade you from going. That was to protect you and students from any miscommunication that can come from conversations with adults that they don't know and they say things. That was it. Nothing was done with it. Just wanted to make sure that nobody came back and said that you said or that they said. That was it. That's a safety protocol. You are not, nor am I, members of that staff and faculty. I don't meet with students outside of the staff that they are familiar with. I don't. And I can't. So it was not meant to deter. That's why it was done. And I am quiet and will not say anything else.
Okay, Mr. Tackett, and then,
You can go ahead.
okay, he can go ahead.
Since we're talking about the history, I am going to tell everybody that you definitely tried to discourage me from meeting Ms. Davis. You said, I advise you not to meet her, and you also said...
I absolutely did.
Yeah, and you also said, but how is having lunch with the students going to protect anybody from being misquoted? How would that be? We would still be at risk of being misquoted. You told me, and I said, well, I would rather take the risk of being misquoted by a student than not to hear their voice.
So we put something in place so that no matter what was said, you could say whatever you wanted. We had evidence of you were not misquoted, and the students, nobody was misquoted.
Yeah.
So we put that in place. I stayed away from it, the principal stayed away from it. You had a neutral person in there that the students knew. Yes, sir, I did. It is not typical for board members to want to pull children to converse, but it is over and it is done with. You did it and it was fine. Let us also be clear that I'm not the only one who just tried to dissuade you from that because that is not typical behavior. So please don't make it seem as if the superintendent is trying to keep board members away from staff and students, because that is not the case.
But you were definitely mollified when I said I would record the conversation.
And I said fine.
And you wanted a copy of the recording, and I sent it to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that if I have lunch with the students.
This was from a very specific incident, and you were going looking for very specific information. It was very different. I think it's a wonderful idea for you to go and have lunch with the general population. Go to the lunchroom. This is pulling students to another room to talk to them. It is not the best practice. Again, sir, I'm not going to, debate with you. You did what you wanted to do. It was safe for you. It was safe for the students. It is done. I did absolutely nothing with it. I just wanted to make sure that they didn't say anything that would be harmful to you. You didn't say anything that could be misconstrued. I can't even tell you where that recording is.
I proposed a lunch in the dining hall, and the principal said that...
So the next time I will instruct her to do it the way that you want to do it, so
Okay,
that's
we
a
need
better
to move
choice.
on.
I just got one little teeny tiny
We
thing.
have got to go on, we got to see
20
Mosley,
I know.
and we
Well,
want to
just,
hear all that good
the other
stuff.
reason why we need to tell the principals is because they test a lot. And so even though if I usually check the testing schedule to see if but sometimes I don't read it right. And so, because what Dr. Johnson said about the interruption of instruction, a school board member walking into a school is automatically a disruption.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna be quiet now.
All right.
If I could just say one quick word,
Ben?
I think school board members should be in the schools. I think they should be in the schools often.
Yes.
I have no problem with contacting the superintendent and letting her know that I'm gonna be there, contacting the principal, letting them know. But I think as students, I think the administration need to get to know the school board members. It should be not a deterrent, but an open door policy.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the more we get to know each other, the better the communication is, the better the rapport is, and the better I think it would work for all involved.
I agree. Mr. Townsend?
That's pretty much where I stand.
I'm just gonna motion to table
It will come back again.
It'll come back next month.
or
I don't know that it will come back as an action item, I think it will still be much discussion.
Second.
That's what I was gonna just,
Go ahead.
to speed up the process, I was backing off, because I was just gonna say, you know, brought this to the attention of the board just as a non-action item.
Non-action item, yeah.
Not to vote on it, but just to share it.
Share it, that,
And just to get it out there. I've not had a problem, I will say, with contacting Dr. Johnson.
Okay.
Or any time in the previous months. So just to share this protocol, share something different. So, and I'm 100% as far as safety concerned, when I'm at the schools so far. I'm getting a visitor badge. I'm making sure I've got a school staff member with me when I go around. I'm not gonna go through the halls by myself. That's a board member.
Are we bringing this back?
Nonsense.
are we doing what?
Are we bringing this back to the board?
That's a board decision. This is a board
There was a
decision.
motion that was made. Is that something that,
What was your motion?
Oh, I was contemplating either motion to table or postpone indefinitely, but since you said it was non-action, I didn't formally make one, but
he made, it is an action item. It is, this is.
It's a non-action.
Oh, it is,
It's
okay,
a non-action item.
okay.
Okay. So we're gonna move from this? Okay, let's move on to number 12, elementary school construction update. Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same one that you had. It's, might have been updated, those copies, but sort of keep the flash drive.
While we're setting up, we have invited Mosley back and Cambridge as well to talk about the updates around the mobile units and where we are and what we need to do moving forward.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley.
Well, I appreciate you having us back. We're gonna do our normal monthly update and talk a little bit more detail about the mobile classroom project. I've got Henry Hodges here, president of Cambridge Construction, who's a little bit on that work and has been now part of the overall project team to help facilitate their work. And we're gonna talk a little bit about market factors and the complexity of the project, and certainly be willing to take any questions that you all might have once we conclude. If there are any questions along the way, please let me know as well. So we'll do just a typical project update. That's what we did back in I think in April when we were here. I think we've been providing written updates when we've not been here in person for Dr. Johnson to provide you all as well. Give an update on the mobile classroom project now that it's under contract and underway. Talk a little bit about next steps and then take any questions you all might have.
So as we're nearing the completion of the big project, lots of things that are happening from a site perspective. We're continuing to do a lot of coordination with existing utility lines and where new utilities might be engaged in the building. Timmons, our civil engineer, has been meeting with the county building officials. We're still doing some water meter testing, still looking at landscape requirements, all those kind of things as they wrap up their site drawings, and they anticipate submitting those to the county to begin the review and approval process within the next week or 10 days. Continued work around the site, looking at that as well, looking at where obviously the new parking we talked about before, some of the existing parking spaces, the striping doesn't meet current ADA guidelines, so we anticipate doing restriping and just kind of re-top coating a lot of the asphalt just so that when we're done, it looks like a new school. We have proper ADA parking spaces, and they have access and accessible route into the building, so that's the intent of it. As we talked about the project, when we leave the project, when it's completed, it's as close to the new school as we can make a renovation. Inside the building, we've completed the hazardous material survey. We think there's going to need to be some modest abatement in each phase, so as we start to finalize at least our thoughts on what a phasing schedule would be, we're going to bake in some time for abatement of those materials. Nothing alarming, very common to have some modest amounts of materials in certainly the older parts of the building. Primarily in floor tile adhesive and some sealants. Nothing friable, nothing like that. It's primarily those kind of sealant kind of materials. We've concluded some geotechnical investigation. We've had ECS on board for that. There is probably going to be some questionable infill material where buildings E and F are located now. We really won't be able to know the extent of that until we start demoing, or when the contractor starts demoing those projects or those buildings. So what we do in instances like this, we start preparing final bid documents. We'll include an allowance of materials to be included in the bid documents. And then we'll ask contractors to provide us a place price and a removal price, so that and it's tied to an allowance, so that if we end up needing to exceed that allowance, if more material is found that we need to extract, and we've got a price that's fixed for that in the contracts, we kind of minimize negotiation and can keep the project moving forward. And the converse will be the same, that if we end up not needing all the material that we include in the allowance, then there's a credit back to you all that's fixed, so we don't have to get into a protracted negotiation with that kind of work. We've got Mr. Davis and the food service staff. There'll be some modest kind of renovations to the kitchen area, primarily to ceilings and lighting, and a new kitchen hood over the areas that need hood. Been working through just typical phasing and lighting kind of work with Dr. Johnson and her team here. In terms of status, we're about 60% through construction documents as a whole. Some areas are a little ahead of that, depending on the flow of our work. And continuing ongoing coordination internally with us in terms of structural components, floor slabs, those kind of building materials. We need to get out in terms of architectural work, catching up with electrical work, mechanical works. Our mechanical and engineering team are a little ahead of us as the architecture and interiors work catches up with that internally. Been doing continued plumbing and roof drain coordination. There'll be a lot of replacement of underground lines just because of the age of those lines. Been providing some additional drainage in courtyard areas, some additional secondary drainage for roofing. We've got a roof consultant on board that's handling all that, so there'll be, all the roof work that we've talked about for the last couple of years will be really basically brand new when that's completed. So that'll be good for the community. So I don't have to worry about that going forward. We talked a little bit about some of the water lines and some of the trenching we'll need to be doing for external and internal subgrade piping. So that's where we are in terms of building progress. Lots of things happening on our end. I'm still engaging with Dr. Johnson and Mr. Good and the team here as we start to complete that work for the big project. Update on the temporary classroom project, again, we've got Emery here too to kind of talk a little bit about market conditions. I'll talk about kind of the sequence of work. We have Cambridge on board now. We've got a much more detailed schedule about what's going to happen when. Will Scott is under contract with you all now for the mobile classroom units as that vendor. Lots of pieces and parts, a lot of work that needs to happen within a short period of time. So we'll kind of go through that in some detail. Just to remind folks, just in terms of where that complex is going to go, about 15 units, I think we talked about before, that WillScott is providing brand new units. The first time these units have been used in Virginia, so there's been an approval process. They've been having to do that with VDOE up in Richmond. Brand new units, lower to the ground. I think we talked about that before, so there will be much smaller and modest ramp and step structures as well, and then a canopy that will provide coverage internally for all the units as well. So that's when that's kind of located. I think we have 15 classroom units. There'll be both boys and girls toilet components, and there'll be a teacher kind of workroom component that has its own toilet as well as part of that. Lots of connections, and Emery can talk about that too if y'all have questions in terms of utility connections. We've got to connect life safety and fire alarm systems. We've got to connect plumbing, electrical, data. All the systems have to be connected from these units back to the existing elementary school infrastructure. I'm sure you all been informed. We had targeted August 5th as a completion date. That was put in the construction documents that we put to the market. I know you all have been informed that date's not going to be met, and we're looking more like the middle of October for the transfer of students to those units becoming operational after fall break. We have substantial completion set up around the 1st of October, I think, Emery, somewhere in there. So it'll give us a couple weeks to go through final punch list, so they'll be ready to go at that point. I'm going to talk a little bit about schedule factors and kind of what the roles are of our role in the project, what WillScott's role was in the project, and what Cambridge's role was in the project. Our charge is to put together construction documents that we put to market. We can put together our not guess, but our best estimation of a schedule, trying to align that with school needs. And we do that for almost all projects we do in the public world, and the market responds. And sometimes they respond favorably, sometimes they respond less favorably, sometimes we get a lot of activity, sometimes we don't. So in the case, that's what we plugged in a schedule to have those units to be completed by August 5th when school were to start. And we had one bidder, and that was Cambridge. I got a phone call from Emery the day before that the bids were due and said, we're struggling to get subcontractor participation. Everybody's nervous about the schedule. I said, I understand that. We would appreciate your consideration if you were to bid the project, and we'll sort the schedule out afterwards, because it was important to try to get this work done and not include it in the big project. So whether it was August or sometime after August, that would still be better than if we were to put this work in the big project. So if we put this work, all the utility work and the mobile classrooms in the big project, we wouldn't have a contract on board until October. All this work would be happening through the fall, and we would not be having students moving and teachers moving into these units until probably February or March of next year. So we were always going to be better in terms of schedule, even though we knew that August 5th could be tight. So there's some macro issues that have been affecting just the market in general, and I'll go through those. There have been two big pots of money that have been out there since COVID. There's some of the ARPA funds that sunset in September 2024, and there are ESSER funds. There were 2 or 3 different ESSER batches, but there's a big batch of funding that sunsets in September of 2026. As we emerge from the pandemic and toward the end of 2021, a lot of that money could be used for infrastructure projects that was related to indoor air quality and envelope improvements to make the air better inside schools. That was very much COVID focused. So a lot of projects were focused on indoor ventilation, indoor air quality, and the building envelope. So they became a lot of HVAC infrastructure projects. So in a very short period of time, you had a lot of projects that hit the market. HVAC projects that required larger equipment that moved larger volumes of air to increase the air exchanges inside these projects. The larger equipment required additional power. So all of a sudden we started to see squeezes in the market related to large mechanical equipment and large electrical equipment, be it switchgear or large panel boards. We're still feeling the effects of that today. So us having 15 classrooms and 2 toilet units and a teacher unit, there is additional power that's required for these projects. There's just not enough existing power that is at the existing elementary school to fund essentially 30,000 square feet of work. That was all included in the bid documents. We knew that we would have Dominion Power at some point engaging whoever the low bidder was going to be to provide some additional power, whole line of transformers and additional power to this particular project. So in terms of macro level, a lot of electrical systems for projects nationwide needed to be increased just to support the larger HVAC equipment. So at one point, about 18 months ago, large electrical equipment, switchgear, panel boards, and large HVAC equipment was up to 52 weeks in lead time. So it just kind of really put a strain on projects. And we can get into some of the lead time issues we have on this project. It's not 52 weeks, it's more in the 8 to 12 week range. But equipment that we could get on 4 to 6 to 8 weeks notice, we can't get anymore. So those are some of the macro issues that have been affecting the schedule. And we provided some bullet points, and I'll kind of go through these, and certainly we can talk about these in some more detail. So we're still having some lingering effects at a micro level that are project specific. We still see projects that continue to have demand for larger HVAC equipment and larger electrical equipment. So that's still, it's better than it was 18 months ago, but it's still not back to where it was pre-COVID. And also factoring in all of this is also the WillScot component of delivering new units that are new to the Virginia market, and coordinating all of that work between whoever the low bidder was, WillScot, and their trailers or mobile units need to be installed for the most part before Cambridge or whoever the low bidder was to really start a lot of their work in terms of the connections. So Cambridge reached out to the local subcontractor community. They're just down the road in Nottoway. Only one electrical contractor agreed to bid the project, and they had a caveat that they provided to Cambridge that they were looking at a minimum of 12 weeks for the lead time for the equipment, which we all knew at that point was going to kind of blow up the August 5th date. And they've been able to improve that, and again, Emery can kind of talk about some of the details, so they've been going through that and trying to improve that schedule. In terms of process, we get a contract on board, a contract signed, and notice to proceed is issued. We start doing submittals. We got submittals in advance once we knew Cambridge was a low bidder and the contract was getting worked out between them and the school system. They went ahead and sent us submittals in advance, so we tried to advance the project as quickly as we can while the contract was being signed. So submittals are in progress, in the process of being approved, and once they're approved, then the electrical subcontractor can then begin fabrication of those panels. And then there's the component of having Dominion Power. So the Dominion Power, once the panels have been designed to support the power needed for the project, then Dominion Power can get involved and start determining how much power they need to bring and in what form and what transformer size. So those are some in terms of some of the project sequences and some of the things that are affecting schedule. So as you might imagine, we bid the project in May. There's a lot of work that really needed to happen between May and August, and it turns out it was unrealistic, and we did our best. And it's no excuse. It was just that was just the reality. The schedule information that Dr. Johnson has given y'all has been coming from us, not from her. So I just want everybody to know that she's been relaying information to you all in the community that's been coming from our best anticipation and estimation of what a schedule might be. So we'll certainly take ownership of all that. And we're doing everything we can to facilitate the schedule and working with Emery and his team. We've done a lot of work with Emery over the years. They're going to be a fantastic contracting partner, and we'll do everything we can to improve things. But we've got a pretty good date now in terms of October. It makes sense in terms of the next logical break in the school calendar, and I think we feel pretty comfortable with that date can be achieved. I'll go through just some bullet points about in terms of sequence of work. A lot of the May work has already been done. Getting into to June, our permit drawings have already been submitted to the county. We're working with them in terms of sequence. The building official really likes the contractor to submit the drawings. We've submitted the drawings, and we're going to say just review everything, give us the comments. hold the permit until Cambridge is ready to pick up the permit. So we're working through that a little bit. If we need to get the county manager involved to help facilitate that, we'll do that. Doug's great about doing that. And we're going through submittal review and approval, and then we anticipate site demolition happening later this month as well. There's some engineering drawings, both for the canopy that's going to be connecting the units together, and also the units themselves. So Will Scott's kind of handling all that, and we will help that. So if we need to, if Mosley has to facilitate the permit process with Will Scott, we're certainly prepared to do that as well, to facilitate the process. During July, we anticipate some of the subgrade work to happen. There'll be some canopy footings that need to be installed for the canopy that Will Scott will provide. Installation of water and sewer. There'll be some sidewalk repair once utilities cross existing sidewalks. And there'll be some roughing for electrical work and fire alarm, intercom, and data. So again, that's being connected all back to the existing fire alarm, data, and intercom infrastructure of the existing elementary school. Sometime in August, we anticipate modular units to be delivered, and then that's when Cambridge really ramps up in terms of doing connecting all of the infrastructure work they've done over the course of the summer, and then connecting that work back to the modular units. Completion of work in September, the installation of canopy lights, final kind of trim and fit out of all the electrical work, and have final inspections completed by the end of September. Substantial completion, which is a contract term that's in the contract. That means that the work is essentially complete, other than just coming back and doing final punch list inspections. So if there's a nick or a ding or an electrical faceplate or something like that that's been missed, that's just normal kind of process, us working with Cambridge and their team to get that completed. And then we anticipate all that happening that first week in October. Students move in October 16th after the move-in over fall break. So that's right now the work that we anticipate. That's the work that that Cambridge and their project managers put together in terms of a detailed project schedule. So that's what we're working toward right now. I'll stop talking. I've talked a lot. So we'll be glad to, before we get into next steps, we'll be glad to answer any questions. Again, Emery can talk a lot about what he sees in the market, what kind of drove some of the conditions. I'll be glad to answer any questions y'all have about the project in general and the temporary classroom compound as well. Yes, ma'am.
Are we pretty well set? I mean, I know barring horrible things happening, but assuming, are we pretty well set for this October date that to get to move the kids?
Unless something unforeseen happens, yes.
Okay.
So we're geared up to work with Emery's team in terms of submittal review. We'll be running project meetings, just normal things like that. So we'll have twice a month project meetings down here to make sure the work is progressing. They have built their schedule on that, so I think there is comfortable buy-in that
we can meet this schedule.
Yeah, we can meet this schedule.
Okay. This one is realistic.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? This is y'all may have the slide deck. Certainly, y'all can keep this slide deck too and pour over all this information as well. But any other questions we'll be glad to answer. Yes, sir.
The situation with the footing and the ground and things like that, with the increase in cost. Now, is that something that we kind of expect even more of? I mean, in the HVAC units where they're larger and needing, is that inflation that we're going to be counting in? How are we counting? Is that? So, are we expecting to get more of those types of things?
Once on this project, anything that happens now will just be either unforeseen conditions that we might run into, or Cambridge might run into, or their subs as they start doing any underground or subgrade work just for the mobile classroom project. For the big project, we've got a project contingency for the overall project. So if any of those things kind of happen, we'll have a project contingency to draw against. Certainly when we put the big project out to bid, we'll have demolition drawings. We spent a lot of time out here with Mr. Wilkerson and the whole facilities team. So we have as good an understanding as we can about where things are. But it's not going to be unrealistic to think that once the contractor is on board for the big project, we're gonna find some things that have not been identified, and that's why I have our project contingency. So, in terms of inflation, once you get a contractor on board for the overall project and they provide a bid price, we're gonna lock in that price at a contract price. And anything that happens beyond that will not be inflation driven, it'll just be more unforeseen condition driven. So any inflation that might be in the market related to big equipment, that's gonna be factored into whatever the low bid number is on bid day. And we still have, I think, a pretty good contingency. We've been updating Dr. Johnson and Mr. Stanley in terms of the project, over our project budget. We feel comfortable where we are right now. But we'll know more on bid day. Certainly when we bid the project, the big project, the market will really tell us at that point where we think we are. But we had 2 new elementary schools bid in Henrico within 2 weeks, and we had really good participation and good numbers on those. So this is not all new construction. As a portion of it is, a lot of it's renovation, and there's various types of renovation. Some is pretty simple and some is pretty difficult. But the numbers that we received in Henrico were pretty encouraging. So we hope that spills over down here when we take the big project later this summer. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of next steps, now that we have, we've been talking about bid dates for the big project. Now that we have a pretty firm target in terms of the completion of the mobile classroom project, we're going to work backwards for a bid date for the big project. Because what we do not want to have happen is we would love if Cambridge is low bidder, they can just continue, but we do public procurement. So the event that we have another contractor for the big project, what we really want to avoid is overlap and them stepping on each other's toes. Although if Cambridge is not low bidder, as they wrap up the mobile classroom project, we really don't want another contractor blurring the lines about where one set of work stops and starts and where the other one starts. So we're going to look at the October bid date and work backwards from that, and we're going to start doing that over the next week or so, and then work with Dr. Johnson and then also Sands Anderson on the contract documents and start looking at a firm procurement schedule for the big project, with the anticipation that we'll come back to you at that early October board meeting with a recommendation. So we'll work backwards from that. So right now we're thinking about advertising sometime 3rd, 4th week in August, bring bids back the end of September, and then come back to you all at that first school board meeting in October with a bid recommendation. That'll give us a clean dividing line between the mobile classroom project and the big project. It doesn't affect phasing at all. The phasing still has us completing the project that first quarter of 2027. Again, we've talked about too, if a contractor comes on board for the big project and they have a better, more efficient way of navigating the project and can do that, we are all ears, so we can complete that project soon. That's the good thing about a phased project like this. We've done a lot of these. We can again kind of put our best estimation on duration. What we experienced on the mobile classroom project, we could experience on the big phase project, but we could also take advantage of that, so that if we see that there are going to be big equipment delays, there might be a way to bundle more work together and do fewer phases in a more efficient way. So we won't know that until we get a contractor on board. But we don't anticipate the project extending beyond that kind of target of the first quarter of 2027. But if we can beat that, we absolutely will beat that. So that's kind of where we are right now. Again, we're moving ahead, full steam ahead internally for bid documents. And again, we've got Emory here too. Any questions y'all have about the mobile classroom project and the market in general? They do as many schools or more schools than anybody in the Commonwealth, so they're a good resource that y'all have at your disposal over the summer as well.
Any questions, comments, board members?
Very good. Yeah. Well, thank you all very much. We look forward to seeing y'all again this summer.
Thank you. Exciting.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Exciting times ahead.
Oh, Mr. Halsey?
Yes, ma'am.
I think there's a question
Well, I
about.
just thought everybody else knew, and I'm the only one that doesn't. But
Oh, no,
physically, if I'm looking at the elementary school, where are the mobile units going to be?
They're gonna be on this blacktop.
blacktop and blacktop.
Oh, right here.
Yes, on the blacktop.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the staging
No,
area.
no,
Because
no,
we had
just,
that.
I mean, like, so when I drive up to park here,
You'll
it's gonna be
see.
right
They're
there.
gonna be there,
Yes.
and also kind of the back third of this playground is gonna be, so we're gonna do some playground reconfiguration. And there'll be a couple, I can't remember, there were 2 or 3 units on that, and that sidewalk between the blacktop and the playground, will be part of that mobile classroom complex.
Okay.
And I did have another question about
Yeah.
that. The drop-off then is gonna be, you're gonna totally reconstruct that drop-off?
Not during this project, but the big project.
But are you gonna change, cause on your, map, you did indicate that there was gonna be some changes to the drop-off, is it?
Yeah, they will be in the big project, but for.
But not in the small,
yet.
not.
There won't be any changes at
No,
all.
okay.
During construction. And then based on, based on how the project will ultimately be phased, we'll determine which summer that the drop-off loop happens, whether it's the first summer or the second summer. A lot of that will be dependent on, how ultimately the contractor for that project sequences site work. But yeah, the images that we've shown over the course of the project, the whole drop-off loop is going to be reconfigured, additional queuing space, get cars off.
So I do have a question that I thought you were asking, Ms. Kimbrough. We talked about a staging area for equipment during this process.
Yes,
And the staging area is supposed to be on the other side of the elementary school where the back part of that parking lot
that's
is.
correct. Yes.
So, is everybody with me? For the mobile classrooms, will you set up that staging area at that time, or will you not need a staging area for the mobile classrooms?
We'll need a modest one, I think, but we will not need nearly as much as what we needed for the big project.
Right.
And I think
But
that
it's still gonna
staging
be
area
back.
can happen kind of within
Okay,
a much more compacted area.
so we don't need that
We
as the
don't.
staging
Yeah.
area yet, okay.
Right now. The anticipation is for the big project that the public access to the elementary school will remain on the west side of the campus. And the contractor access will be on the east side of the campus,
Right.
and they'll kind of work east to west,
Right.
ultimately finishing the parking lot work and then exiting the project.
But we don't need it for
We don't
this
need,
project.
we don't.
Thank you.
One of the things that we're trying to do as well is, we've been talking, we met with Will Scott and Dominion this morning, and we're trying to figure out if there's any way possible to get Will Scott to get to all these trailers on site before you start school year August, even if, if they're not in place, but they're here and out of the way, so we're not trying to do that while you're trying to go back to school.
That would be
And
great.
the other thing is that with Dominion, we have to give Dominion Power has to bring new power in here for all of these classrooms. And we have to give them what our needs are, which comes from Will Scott. This is what it takes to operate these trailers. And that involves the panels that we have to have somebody manufacture. And we have to give that to Dominion, and Dominion has to engineer the job. And they have to figure out how they get the power off of their system for these trailers. And we determined it's gonna take 2 transformers, and we're hoping that it's gonna be 2 pole mount transformers because they're readily available. The ground mounted square transformers are the ones that take so long to get. So we're hoping that we got the ball rolling with Dominion this morning to maybe speed that process up to be able to use the pole mount transformers.
Thank you.
So we're doing everything we can so that even though you're not gonna be in these like you wanted to be, we're gonna try to do our best to make it as inconvenient as we can. I mean, not,
That's it.
I said that
We knew what you meant.
less,
Convenient.
yeah,
Yes.
try to make it, we don't wanna inconvenience you, while you're trying to go back to school, so we'll try to be out of your way. And then whenever we get to the end, we get all this thing inspected, we get all the systems hooked up, intercom, fire alarm, everything hooked up, make sure it's tested, everything is ready for the kids when you get ready to go and make your move. We will help you move. And the reason, and I tell you, I know you don't wanna hear this, but sometimes when you have a short time to move, it's better.
if you have a long time.
Cause you move it.
Cause you know, like, if somebody gives you a week to move out of your house, you know, you dilly dally around, take a week off of work, but somebody says you gotta move this weekend, you go in there and get it done, and, you know, you deal with it during the week, so sometimes that little, having that weekend to move works out better, just get it over with.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
Academic discussion.
The only thing that I'd like to share is the fact that we did have a meeting with the state superintendent and the state chair, the chair of the State Board of Education. And that meeting was, I believe it was last Monday, Ms. Carson?
Yes.
It included Ms. Carson, I was there, of course, and Ms. Garrett and Mr. Foster, represented Prince Edward and Dr. Ballard. We did get glowing remarks about our presentation. What the superintendent, the state superintendent, was interested in was 3 glows, so 3 positive things that we can talk about, 3 areas of growth for us, and then anything else that we really needed to discuss. She wanted to hear short-term needs of our division and long-term needs of our division. As far as the glows, the things that we've made progress around, though these numbers are not final, is graduation rate. We talked about that. We talked about chronic absenteeism, which you all have seen happen over the last few months. And we talked about college and career civic readiness indicators, how we have improved significantly from last year to this year. As far as the areas of growth, we talked about, of course, general academic achievement, and we showed areas of growth and areas that we still need to talk about. We did also express that our special ed population, we really need assistance around special education and making sure that those students are academically successful as well. We also talked about mental health and discipline, and we showed her the numbers from Fulcrum Counseling, and you all had a presentation regarding that last month, I believe it was. And the number that is steadily increasing. Last year we had 112 students, this year 181. We also talked about middle and high school incidents. And we also shared with her the staffing needs that we have and the mitigating circumstances, for instance, the need for counselors as well as the need for special educators. We shared data, which I talked to you briefly about, or at least mentioned during Ms. Garrett's presentation around literacy and all-in tutoring. We showed her how many students in Tier 1 and Tier 2 needed assistance. We had far more students that needed remediation in mathematics or intervention in mathematics versus English, but still very high numbers. And we shared those numbers with her. As far as short-term supports, we asked for instructional supports. We asked for professional development around continuing around graduation, curriculum alignment, and program evaluation protocols, so that to help us determine what is working and what is not, because we're doing so many different things. As far as long-term needs, we talked about recruitment and retention, as well as instructional supports. So overall, the meeting was 30 minutes, and we shared our data with her, and again, received very positive feedback around our gains, as well as the ability to provide data to support those.
May I add something to that?
Absolutely.
That Thursday, Dr. Coombs was at our board of directors meeting for the VSBA, which she comes once in a while and gives some information. And she mentioned something about some goals for the fall that they were working on at the state level. And two of them I remember, and I think attendance was the other one. She was talking, I was writing. A goal, the benchmark place for third grade. The kids, when they come from third grade, they need to be reading, which is nothing new.
Great.
Yeah, to us is that. And that would be the benchmark for how the rest of their years will happen. And 7th grade math, would be benchmarked to see if students are ready for high school lab, using information there. And high school readiness. How are we preparing the students for high school when they leave middle school? Are they ready for high school? And even on the other end of that, when they leave high school, do they have a plan for the future, for post-secondary education? Some of the same things she told us in the meeting Monday, she discussed in the meeting Monday, she did discuss them with the board of directors for the VSBA.
Seventh grade math.
Seventh grade math.
Is this, is the board gonna get this, how our progress, are we actually gonna see that data?
If you're talking about the data that we presented to the
Right.
school, to
Yeah.
Dr. Coons,
Yeah.
I have it here, I can simply upload it. I debated whether or not to upload it or just discuss it, but I can easily send this to you.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think
we-
it's something we probably should,
Um,
I think we should probably, maybe.
What I want to say is please understand that current numbers are preliminary.
Okay,
They're our numbers, and that was my debate and whether, because she clearly understood they were our numbers, and she has access to all of this.
Okay.
But, that's why I didn't upload it, just because I didn't, they are
Yeah.
preliminary numbers.
okay,
So
yeah,
I will
I'd like
put
to get that.
caveat, but yes, this
Okay.
is the presentation, and it's easy for me to upload.
Dr. Johnson, the final numbers should be in August, is that correct, usually?
August, September.
September.
It depends on which numbers, because the CGI, the high school numbers don't come out, they come out a little later than some of the others, so.
All right. We're gonna move on to the calendar.
So you said high school readiness, I was.
Um,
So the calendar, the one thing that is on the calendar that I do wanna draw your attention to is let's see if I can find it. Number 3, which says June 17th, elementary school playground and reading Eagle ribbon cutting. So that date may be adjusted, the group is meeting tomorrow, but we do have a Reading Eagle bus, which is a traveling library that we have created, and we've been working on this project for a little over a year now, and it's about to come to fruition. So the bus is down in transportation. One of our teachers built the shelves, so all we now need to do is put the curtains in and put the books in. So we will have that ribbon cutting this summer. We hope to have the ribbon cutting for the bus and the playground at the same time. You know, there have been several delays with our playground. We had hoped to have it finished by March. They are actually not gonna start construction until Monday. So the 17th, and it'll take 3 weeks, so that'll be the end of June. We had hoped that the playground would be ready for the end of summer school, and we could have a big end of summer school activity, but I'm not sure that will happen. So hold the 17th for at least the reading bus, but if not, I'll be sending you updated information. But those are 2 big ribbon cuttings that we want to have this summer. And we're really excited about that. As far as everything else, you know that the end of the month, June 26th, is our end of the year closeout meeting. That meeting should be no more than a half hour or so. It's to review the end of the year bills and where we are. It is not on here, but we have started, or the county has started its preliminary audit. We are using the same auditors that we have used over the past several years. So this closeout, it always becomes part of the audit. So that's it.
Board member comments? I'm gonna tell you, I put this in front of you today, to make you aware, or just to remind you. The LCVA has a youth art exhibition every year. There's artwork from all over the region, all over Region 8. We have artwork from schools in Chesterfield all the way to Lynchburg and Mecklenburg. you know, the counties of surrounding counties and that. And we have the opening on June 9th, Sunday, from 2 to 4 at the LCDA. It will be a lot of children. It will be a ton of children, but they always come excited and they're looking for their work. It's about 1,500 pieces of art. It may be more, but we've been putting it up this week, trying to clean up all the little things that have to be done. And if you're not doing anything Sunday, 2 o'clock, come on by, look at the artwork, check it out, and have the children point to where they can find their work. They can definitely find it. The front window this year was done by Charlotte County, and it's called To Creativity and Beyond. And it's all black light, so if you drive by there at night and you see it, it's beautiful. You just gotta see it. They did a fantastic job. Did I say Charlotte County? Yes.
Yes, they should.
Yeah, Cumberland County had done the window in the fall when school came back. The little boy sitting on the bench reading the book, and all of the kids participated. Prince Edward usually does the window, but sometimes Prince Edward teachers need a little break. So they worked on, they do have work there.
Absolutely.
The elementary school has work there, and there's a lot of work. The middle school participated, all the schools participate. Middle school participated this year. Some schools don't participate.
Yeah, they don't have the high school listed on there.
They didn't participate this year. Usually they do. I think with the new art teacher, that, you know, that was a little bit, that's usually what it is. But we send out letters to every school from Campbell County out, you know, all the way as far as we could go down. And we work with the schools. Some of them have youth art exhibitions at their own schools and in their own districts. And they say, well, can I bring my stuff in later? Sure you can. We work with them and we accept everybody's art. So Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock, there will be refreshments, kid kind of refreshments. They really would like that. So if you I just wanted to give you a personal invite. And this is it's not just public schools, private schools, it's homeschool kids. It's anyone who wants to participate. You know, so it's really nice, and I hope you can come out and check it out. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to give some shout outs. Dr. Johnson, her staff, principals of the various schools stepping up, exercises, the graduation exercises. They were a symbol of excellence. It was really interesting to hear the valedictorians say that Prince Edward County afforded him resources that he would not have gotten at the school that he came from. And our resources afforded him to be standing there as the valedictorian. It was remarkable as to how it seemed every I was dotted, every T was crossed, and the children knew where to cross that I and T, even down into the stepping up for the 8th grade. That too was exceptional. So I am very proud to say that what I saw this past May, I am truly proud of, and continue Dr. Johnson and staff to exemplify excellence.
Thank you.
And I did all that.
Yeah.
I didn't make it to any,
too.
I didn't make it to any stepping up ceremonies, but the graduation was outstanding.
I was glad that they were all like child where the students were leading the programs. Yeah, really good.
Anyway.
And from the little children
I know we mentioned it earlier about the attendance, but again, just kudos to our staffs, the schools, the all-in initiative, spearheaded by the school division, Dr. Johnson, the grant and everything. It took time and to apply for that and to get it. And there's been you can tell in the numbers, the data doesn't lie. When you see our middle school 95%, the elementary is in the 90s, the high school wasn't up there as like we wanted it to be, but it's still higher than high schools I've seen.
And it's improved.
And it's improved. That's the thing. It's all about growth, and that's that growth mindset. So, so very appreciative to the staff members and to the students and their parents and everyone involved, the whole school community, because attendance is it's a bear, it's a beast, and so.
Yeah. Correspondence?
There is nothing out of the ordinary around correspondence. If you are looking for or you're interested in some of the professional development opportunities, there is the Curriculum and Instruction June newsletter that is part of the correspondence. But other than that, everything else is related to personnel.
Okay.
But that newsletter is there.
Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session so we can finish up.
I move we go into closed session.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Stiff?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Mr. Pollard? Mr. Tucker? Dr. Corbett?
Okay.
Okay, I recommend that monies held in escrow for teacher A be distributed.
I move that we do that.
Second. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
All in favor?
You abstaining, Dr. Reed?
No, I'm going to abstain from that.
You're abstaining, okay.
Number two, I'm sorry, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
I recommend that we do not honor the religious accommodation we presented.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Is it just?
Just the, I'm about to make another motion.
Okay.
Okay, the rest clear about what I'm saying.
sorry. But one, you said do not.
I recommend that we do not honor the religious accommodation. I recommend that we accept the religious exemptions presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I recommend that we accept the personnel list as presented.
So moved.
All in favor?
I recommend that employee B be in the position that has been listed most recently.
In your
Check your
latest
email.
emails. I got it.
In the latest email.
I got it.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
On the personnel list, you get it? How do you get it?
No, she does. All right, you got it? All right,
Opposed, did you do opposed?
Yeah, you didn't say all opposed.
I'm sorry.
The
You did
last
not say all opposed on that last one.
Oh, sorry. All opposed?
Which one?
I recommend that employee B be in the position listed most recently in the noted email.
That's that last thing we discussed.
Okay, so the opposed.
They're opposed and you raise their hand.
So you got two.
Okay, so Mr. Tippett,
I apologize for that.
You're adjourned.
Yeah, second.
Okay, all of you, I know you all did. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank
Be
you all.
adjourned. Have a good evening. Don't forget to